Northern New York, where Hillary and I live, a company called Micron is building Chinese computer chips. Building Chinese competitive computer chips.
19-year-old Shaban Ahmed and his mother were burnt to death.
I will talk about that. I'll be glad to talk about it if you let me talk, and I'll let you talk. Just let me finish the point I'm trying to make.
Terrorists must enact an order to stop and
So,
Can you see?
and don't be like the Republicans. I'll let you talk if you'll just let me finish. So anyway, we're going to... What would you like to say?
Right. How does Kamala expect to end the war in Gaza when her and the Biden administration have only been funding it through the millions, billions that they have given to Israel? Today, Israel has found an open marketplace in the north of Gaza after besieging it, bombing its hospitals, bakeries, and cutting off its water. How will Kamala stop Israel's genocide of the Gaza people and end U.S. military support for it?
That's a fair question. And just give me 2 minutes of background. When I was president, I worked with the Palestinian Authority and with the Israeli government of Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and Barak's government offered the following peace deal. We will give the Israeli government, approve this proposal that we have. We will give the Palestinians a state on the West Bank and Gaza. The UN resolution called for them to have everything west of the 1967 Green Line. He said, we got a lot of Israelis now living in that area, and we can't give it all back, but we can get 85% of the settlers on 96% of the land. So in addition to you getting 96% of the West Bank, we will give you 4% of Israel. And you can choose which 4% you want. You can have it in the north, where your people were before the tribes of Israel were there. Or if you want to relieve all the pressure on Gaza, and if you don't, we'll give it to you in the south, next to the West Bank, so you can grow more food. Totally your choice. And we will share our listening posts in the West Bank all the way up to the Golan. And the Palestinians were interested because Saddam Hussein was still in office. And we will give you a capital in East Jerusalem, and we will divide the old city of Jerusalem. The city of David, we will divide it. You can have the Muslim quarter and the Christian quarter, and we will take the Jewish quarter and the Armenian quarter. You can't even conceive of that today, right? The Israelis, them governing, said yes. And Arafat came to see me about 6 weeks before I left office. And we were talking, and I said, Mr. Chairman, time is here. You've got to tell me, you're going to take this deal or not. He said, oh, we have to do it. He said, if we don't do this while you're here, it could be 20, 25, 30 years. And I said, you have to tell me, because I can go to North Korea and in their nuclear program and their missile program, take a lot of load off the future of North Asia. He said, you can't. How long do you have to be gone? I said, 12 days. He said, God, you can't do it. I said, why? Because it needs to look like I'm kind of strong-arming you to do it. He said, of course. And I looked at her and I said, "You think I care about the Palestinian kids?" And he said, "Far more than the Arabs do. They just want us when they're losing favor in the streets to turn people against the United States and Israel." So I didn't go to North Korea. And you wouldn't be having half the worries you have now, probably, if we had. And nothing happened. And Arafat had never lied to me before. We worked for 8 years. And I got tickled working with him because I felt like I was in a souk in Marrakesh trying to wheedle him into buying one of my rugs. But he never lied to me. He was hard to make a deal with, but if he gave you his word, he kept it. Except this one time he couldn't do it. And I see all these guys, including Zalek, some people work for me, I don't know what they're talking about, claiming they know what happened. But I don't, and I'm the person that had the conversation with him. So I'm telling you this not to justify anything anybody did, but to tell you, when I was there, I did my best. I think the Palestinians are entitled to a homeland. I think what's happened in the West Bank is wrong. But Hamas always had a different ideology. And the far right-wingers in Israeli politics, they were happy when Hamas won the election. And because they thought it would divide the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza and weaken them. But it was something waiting to explode. Hamas historically has had very few people who favored a two-state solution. Their sole goal was to make Israel unlivable. Palestinian Authority, the best days for the Palestinians politically after I left office were under a man named Fayyad, who's been discussed now as somebody who might take over this. Fayyad was totally incorruptible. He ran a great government in the West Bank, and he said, "I'm going to do what Israel did when they took less land than they wanted." And David Ben-Gurion said, "We will turn the desert into a garden." He said, "That's what we're going to do. And people will come to trust us, and we will eventually get our state."
Taken Palestine's land.
What?
Israel has forcibly taken Palestine's land.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree with what I think I heard you say. I'm wearing my hearing aids, and I didn't quite hear it. But here's what I want to tell you. When all this happened, this attack, this was fundamentally different, the October attack. The last, we had ceasefire after ceasefire after ceasefire, and it was always broken partly because the same government controlled Israel for 20 years and they didn't think they had to do anything. But this time, it was different. This time, the Palestinian Authority was not directly involved. Hamas was, but it was still a Sunni Arab organization. And all of a sudden, they had joined the Shia crescent. They were being supported by Iran, by Hezbollah in Syria, in Lebanon, southern Lebanon, by the Houthis in Yemen. And it was terrifying. And where did they attack? They attacked the kibbutzim in Israel that were right by Hamas, right by Gaza. They killed children. It was horrible. And I remember, and so yes, Israel retaliated. And if you've ever been to Gaza, I actually went to Gaza and spoke to the parliament and tried to start this ball rolling. so we can make up. If you've ever been there, it's not a very big, wide place. People are packed in like sardines in a can. And Hamas built all the tunnels underground, and they wanted to put Israel in a position of having to kill civilians to defend themselves.
Israel has killed 20,000 children, none of those needed or because of Hamas. And if some were because of Hamas, the rest of them were because of Israel's continuous bombing of civilian buildings. In fact, 80% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed.
I agree with some of what you just said, but let me remind you, everybody is assuming that Israel should have just been standing there where they were 20 years ago when I got them to do this, like the bride at the altar. Why didn't you wait 20 years and keep your offer open? And that's what happened. Israel changed dramatically. And now the people who have been governing it, they don't care anymore about this directly. So we're going to have to build it again. Now, that's all I can tell you. We're going to have to build it again. The reason you should support Kamala Harris is not because she has a detailed plan, and she can have. This thing was shattered in a million pieces, and the facts are different. If I were there, I couldn't get what I wanted again. It's the hardest thing in the world. But I know one thing, I think we agree on this, we can't kill our way out of this. We cannot kill our way out. So the reason I support her is that Trump is saying, you have to support me because I'll protect Israel. That's actually not necessarily true. Protecting the current government and its policies may make it worse.
Yes.
But we only have one president at a time. And so I can't say much more about this until the American people resolve this at the election, and then we see what's ahead of us. But I'm just telling you, I do know a lot about it. I did everything I could to fix it. I wanted it fixed. It should have been fixed. It was a mistake not to take the deal. I have had other Arab leaders whose privacy I will respect call me and apologize for not trying to force them to take the deal. Because we walked away from, I mean, just think about it. We could be celebrating 25